Hey, welcome back to the Comic Watcher Show. I am your effervescent host, Matthew J. Meyerquist III, Esquire. Returning at long last is mighty Mike Eakins, he of the new laptop that has not shit the bed. Mike, how was your break?
It was good. It was good. I obviously I missed Thursdays, but we're good to go. Got the new machine up and running, and ready to get started. Ready to do some shows.
No shame in the laptop game breaking down. Chad, our other bearded ally, did a mighty fine job substituting, but substitutions for the real thing. So,
but Chad is a rad dude, though.
Totally. And I mean, he lives in New York, so we have to fear him and his reprisals.
Right. But now, does he live in like upstate New York or regular New York? Because that's a difference.
Isn't it all the same?
I don't know. The rats are bigger in New York City than upstate New York, is what I hear.
Okay, I'll give you that, but only because I know that Splinter and the Ninja Turtles are from New York. So
nice.
So this week we are diving into James Tynion IV and Substack and all of that hullabaloo. We are by no means experts, but we figured that this is kind of the big news of the week. Yeah. So, it merited a little bit of conversation. But first, we'd have to drop a bomb. Despite what the opening credits told you,
they're alive.
Osborn, they were alive. That's right. Nicholas Osborn, our stalwart host for co-host for almost 100 episodes of the Comic Watchers show, has moved on to bigger and better things. Tears. So this was kind of crazy. Couple weeks back, I was on vacation in Mexico, and I get this call from Nick, and he's like, well, I have to dip. I have a job, and I had to part ways with Comic Watch. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, what job was it? He said, I have an NDA. I can't talk about it. You have a non-disclosure agreement. What kind of job are you talking about? So, of course, my wheels start spinning. And he eventually revealed that our friend and colleague and former owner / editor-in-chief of comic-watch.com is now in marketing over at Valiant Comics. And Nick was able to use his talents and his position with Comic Watch and successfully springboard that into a career in the comics industry. And I mean that just it sends chills up my spine, Mike.
Absolutely does. That's I mean, it's like it's one of your own. It's one of us that's getting that gig, and
he's going to the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when we were all kids, geeking on comics, much like we're geeking on comics as adults. Every single one of us wanted to be artists or writers or something to do with the comic, and he's almost living the dream. I mean,
he's in the business.
But yeah.
And not for nothing, I've read some of his written comics, unpublished, etc. And dude's got the chops to make it in that field too.
Sure, he does. Absolutely does. Great. Right?
Nick, buddy, we miss you already. The show absolutely will not be the same without him. And for those of you that don't know, Comic Watch is DIY labor of love all day. We're not getting paid to do any of this. We are volunteering our time and effort and energy to giving back to the comics community and something that we love. And Nick took what was, when he became editor-in-chief, well, it wasn't quite 2 years ago, I don't think, was it?
A little.
Well, it was close to 2 years.
Yeah.
It was close. And, there was no organizational structure in the background. And, I mean, it really and truly was a bunch of dudes having fun and winging it. And Nick turned it into a working, functional business. And I mean, that sort of work that he put in and effort in, and he'll tell you it was part of his Comic Watch became part of his identity and who he is. And he's told me that walking away from this thing he spent the last 2 years of his life trying to build was probably the hardest decision he's ever had to make, other than eating dinner at a normal time. And so it really just man, Mike, I'm just like running out of words for how amazed I feel for our friend.
Because, like, I know for me, really quick, just to kind of share a story, when I first came on board, like, he was one of the first ones just to kind of, this is how we do it, and always answering questions and always taking the time to always, and regardless of what time it was, regardless of, me being on the East Coast and you guys being in, Texas and Oklahoma on the West Coast, and, you got other people overseas.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Nick was always there. He was always in some type of conversation. He was always, helping out with something. I remember, midnight. Oh, we're, the website's down. Oh, well, there's Nick. Like, dude, like, what are you doing up? You know what I'm saying? Like, go to bed type deal. But no, that's not Nick. I mean, he's just that speaks on his.
He's just that dude.
Yeah, he that speaks on his soul, his dedication for the craft. And there's Comic Watch is definitely going to miss him. And there's never going to be another Nick. You know what I'm saying?
There can't possibly be, especially not from East Texas. So, of all places. So, we decided, and this was while we were both supposed to be working today. One of us had a brand new job, I might add. So we decided to get our Letterman on and come up with a top 10 pieces of advice for Nick in his new job at Valiant.
Valiant.
Yes. So number 10, and you were incorrect on your list. Number 10. When someone asks you, Nick, if you work for Valiant, don't say Dark Horse by mistake. That's the first piece of advice for you. Michael?
Next one, yes, number 9. It's Exo Manowar, not X-Men. Two different titles.
Or alternatively, it's not Exo Manatee.
Manatee, yes, if you're in Florida.
So, number 8. Mom says kids say, Mom, we want Batman. And Mom says, we have Batman at home, and holds up a picture of Ninjak.
Where's Paul Schaefer when you need him with the organ?
I know, right? Oh, this guy.
Oh, the next one, number 7. Nick, whatever you do not bring up video games in your next marketing meeting.
No.
Not for Valiant. Don't do it.
Very, very important.
Huge.
Number 6. If you can't find Valiant Comics at your LCS, email Nick Osborne at firedfromcomicwatch.com.
Good. Give them that address one more time.
That's Nick Osborne at firedfromcomicwatch.com.
Yes.
If you cannot find your Valiant books, hit him up there.
It's Nick Osborne's fault. East Texas.
Yes.
All right. Number 5. Number 5. Never ask Greg about his cats. Never. Man. Yeah. Never.
You ruined my wordplay.
Sorry. See, Nick, I know you're listening because I can see your comments. The show is literally falling apart.
That's right. All right. Number 4. Nick, in his contract, must be off work by 9:30 p.m. so he can go home and eat dinner.
Oh God, that's what I'm really gonna miss. Is our post-show sidebars. we're in the heat of a discussion, and he's like, "All right, guys, well, I got to go get off some dinner.
9:30 at night. I got to go eat my empanadas from my wife's taco truck."
Right. Like my indigestion, I take another, Prilosec after that because
But I gotta go
my
have
acid reflux is kicking in.
Yeah.
Golly, Nick, you're killing me.
Goodness.
All right, so number 3. Are we at number 3? Yes, we are at number 3.
We're at number 3.
It is Turok, not The Rock.
Yeah, Nick. This is
big difference.
Again, just like the Exo thing, this is a crucial distinction.
Yes.
Number 2, Nick's first big pitch to Valiant, Harbinger, Afternoons of Future Present. Maybe.
It could work.
I think it could work. Nick, you're the marketing guy. You should know these things.
I mean, Harbinger, New Mutants. Maybe there's a difference. Maybe there's not. Who knows?
Maybe. We don't know.
All righty. Next one. When Acclaim comes sniffing around to buy, Nick, just say
no.
No, Nick. Don't.
No. We don't know. And the bonus advice for Nick,
drum roll,
please, is Comic Watch is just not going to be the same without you, buddy.
No,
and, just not having Nick here on the show or with us on the site, despite my new title as pitiless overlord, it's just kind of sad and also extremely, it's bittersweet. And Nick, brother, we love you, we miss you, and we wish you all the best in the world, dude.
Yeah, man.
The show, the site, it's not going to be the same without you.
No. But I tell you what, though, it is cool that I'm sure he's listening, but just to see him still dip into Slack every now and then is pretty refreshing and stuff like that. Even though he is, and for the Valiant people, if you are kind of sweating that he still talks to us small people, he did actually highlight the new XO book in his picture show.
Oh yeah, he's a shameless for you guys. So whatever you're paying him, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, and that's just, Mike, that's something that I really do want to just put out there as part of our story with Comic Watch is, we're volunteers, we're doing this out of love, but this can potentially lead to bigger things.
Sure.
Just because we're the scrappy DIY company and always will be as long as we're around running things into the ground or not.
It's like a train wreck.
Yeah. This can definitely take you somewhere that you never meant to. So if you are, and just my shameless sales pitch now, if you're interested in reviewing comics, anime, comics adjacent media, if you are wanting to better represent the LGBTQ community in comics, the Black community, the Latino community, the female community in comics, hit us up on the site. We are always wanting to look at new submissions for people that are hungry to get their work out there. So
absolutely. Twitter, Facebook, anything. We're all over.
Yeah. We're definitely watching and listening for the next folks that want to come in.
Absolutely.
So now that that's out of the way, let's bitch about Substack. I don't know about you, Mike, but prior to this week, I did not know what the hell Substack was. Did you?
Nope, never knew. Never heard of it before. And then when I started researching, the folks that were getting heat for their just horrible stance on, trans rights and stuff like that, and looking up those names, and I almost wanted to clear my search history from Google just because just some really.
Let's even before we dip into that, because that's definitely a crucial part of the conversation. But let's just backtrack a smidge and talk about why we're talking about Substack.
Right.
And So the news was broken earlier this week. James Tynion the fourth, JT4, as he's known to his friends, which we're not, but we will be someday. James, if you're listening, feel free to come on our show and pimp yourself, your products. And he turned down an extremely lucrative 3-year exclusive contract extension with DC to write a bunch more Batman stuff,
right,
in favor of a self-publishing deal through Substack. And everyone was like, whoa, dude, that's crazy, because he's a big name writer, he's on the A-list.
Yeah.
One
of the biggest.
Reading a JT4 comic, chances are you're reading something that's rocking your world.
Yeah.
Nice House on the Lake, Batman, Something is Killing the Children. Dude just keeps cranking out amazing comics.
Right.
And his Batman run has been incredible.
Yes, it has. It's almost like a rebirth of Batman in a sense.
It really has. It has led to a major creative resurgence in the Bat books right now. And for him to walk away from such a lucrative opportunity, it's like, whoa, what the hell is up? What is a Substack? This is crazy. So Substack, and I had to put on my research goggles a little bit to get this, because there's a lot of moving parts to this. And as with all things new digital media, there's a steep learning curve, and everybody acts like you're stupid for not knowing it.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if you're over 30. And so I even give us the benefit of 40, Mike. It's 30.
Hey,
but so in a nutshell, Substack starts up 4 years ago, and it's kind of like WordPress, except your people are paying to read your shit.
Right.
And it's kind of started as this haven for a lot of journalists that were fed up with a lot of the new media bullshit, like listicles and pandering to corporate interests. And it's like, hey, we just want to leverage real, legit journalism. And if people want to pay us for us, that's great, but we just want to do our job. And a lot of journalists left various reputable media outlets to start these ventures, and they come out in the form of, I guess it's newsletters.
Yeah, they're the newsletters. Yeah,
right. And the big thing there's a couple big points to it. First of all, Substack itself has no ownership on any of the stuff that's printed. So therefore any writer that's writing for them can take, if they want to just bounce out, they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And no skin off their nose. So okay, we've got the basics out of the way. That's really cool. So Mike, where does the icky part start coming in?
Well, the icky part, it's a great word, by the way, icky. The problem is there's really no tracking system. Think of it as like when Twitter first came online, and Twitter was heralding themselves as like, the new dawn of like, free speech and inclusiveness and yada, 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 which is great. It's always great on paper. When you see that word inclusiveness, it's great on paper. But the problem is when mom and dad are away, here comes the people with less than ideal views on people. You know what I'm saying? And so there's a haven, and like I touched on earlier, I said like we touched on earlier, me and you didn't know what Substack was, and then I started digging a little deep into the transphobic statements that were being made by these people. I'm not even going to say any of their names.
Yeah, we don't even want to give them that.
It's just really horrible shit, pardon my French, that they were saying, and it goes. It's no longer inclusiveness when you start to weaponize your speech, when you start to infringe on people's basic human rights. And so there is started to be, and they were all
more to the point of it is that Substack was knowingly allowing.
Right. And then like all the doxing that was going on. Right.
And doxing to happen on their page, and they didn't do anything about it, which makes them complicit.
Right. And what is really shitty, which I don't understand, especially a site that is all newsletters and stuff like that, you don't need verification when you sign up for a newsletter. So if someone has my email address, they can sign me up for whatever newsletter I wanted. So like what was happening, which is a bunch of trans authors and writers and creators, they were getting these hateful newsletters in their email, and so the articles I was reading and stuff, kind of doing research, like they had to like go in and change emails or change, spam, and so they were forced to leave the site because they were just getting harassed. And like I said, I mean, who wants you get all that information, all your personal information is on the internet, and then all hell breaks loose. And like you said, they were just, Substack has been so just nonchalant about everything, and every statement that I've seen from Substack has been so cut and paste that it's like, it reminds me like when I was in the military and we were doing training and stuff like that. And, some dude, would just read, read word for word out of a manual, like, don't do this, don't do that. This is what we stand for. And then you kind of look around the room and everyone's just kind of like ho-humming and, whatever.
Right.
Then you sign your roster sheet. Yeah, I attended the training. Yeah. Okay. Don't do it again. So that's kind of where, this whole outrage kind of, or another level of this outrage is Substack is kind of like, not really doing enough to stop the anti-trans, voices that are coming through this, It's one thing to not agree with someone, be it lifestyle, political views, whatever, that's fine. But as soon as you start weaponizing that, as soon as you start infringing on folks' lives, that's when, stuff needs to stop and stuff needs to, someone needs to step in. So I get the outrage. The outrage is definitely warranted, the outrage, but as I'm sure
they're not doing a good enough job of policing themselves. And it's a story that we've heard a lot in the last 5 years about social media in general because reasons.
Yeah.
And the difference is like, some asshole can get on Twitter and call and spew all this stuff, and eventually, they'll get slapped with the community standards, and maybe they'll eventually get kicked off.
Right.
But on Substack, they're making money off of it.
Big money.
And that's icky.
Yeah.
And not okay. And it says a lot about the people running it.
Mm-hmm.
So start off with this thing that's this kind of pure idea, and it's man, you don't need to worry about a publisher, you don't need to worry about an editor, people will give you money to read your stuff, blah blah blah. Sounds great, like you said, on paper, but now there's the assholes, and they're just screwing everything up. And so now we get to James Tynion IV. And to my knowledge, Mike, and I couldn't find anything to contradict this, but I think this is Substack's first big move into comics content.
Yes. Well, you also got to along with Tynion,
or rather their biggest move. I think they've kind of dipped their toes in it a little bit.
A little bit. It was more like the software, like not like, I guess it was more like webtoons type stuff. It was just more of like an indie folks that were kind of migrating to this, just to get the work out and stuff like that, which is great.
The new guys.
Yeah.
The guys, the guys and girls and indies you've never heard of.
No.
Right? They're suddenly getting a chance.
But then now you got But then now you got folks like, Tynion and Cates and Stegman taking their stuff over there. So
Jonathan Hickman is taking something there, right?
Yeah, Hickman. Forgot about Hickman. Yeah. He's leaving the
he's leaving the comfy confines of X-Men-dom and gonna go get paid on Substack. So you've got all these creators and big name creators that are jumping in on this trend, and it's an obvious cash cow opportunity. I
Sure,
mean,
that's what it is.
the benefits are huge if you're
Mhm.
a creator. You're not jacking around with an editor. You own everything that's published on it. And people are just coming to you based solely on your money with no or your name,
Right.
with no middleman.
Right.
Like, I think Substack takes a small percentage, maybe 10% of the sales or something like that.
I don't know.
Other than that,
Well,
there's no
they're
real
pretty
middleman.
secretive. They're pretty secretive about like contracts and stuff like that. I mean, they've released like some, like I know like Michael Moore, he's like over, I think like $1 million. I think they're paying him just righteous bucks to bring his stuff over there. But majority from what I've tried to, research, today and yesterday and stuff, just I couldn't find a whole lot on their contracts and what they're signing their folks to. So it's kind of, to use your word, icky. That's kind of weird.
A little bit of a moral gray area. I think.
Absolutely.
Lack of transparency.
Right, and especially when you're harboring, and I mean, let's use the correct term.
No, I think you used the right word, harboring.
Yeah, they're harboring, anti-trans, writers that are doxing people, harassing people, and just pretty much, just lower than, the chum at the bottom of the bucket. And now all of a sudden, you're wrangling in these great comic writers, you great comic creators, and you got a huge voice, for the left, progressives, and Michael Moore and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's really weird. It's really odd.
It is, and it's a whole new frontier.
Right.
And it's all digital now.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are saying, well, this sucks because otherwise these books might have been published at Boom or at Image,
right,
or something. And, now they're going digital and that screws these guys over. But it's very, very inevitable that somebody will publish these in print.
Sure. Well,
Afterlift.
Well,
remember when we had Zdarsky and Jason Liu on the show talking about Afterlift, and that was digital only through Comixology, right?
Well,
and
no, go ahead.
I believe it was Comixology. And
Comixology.
That's been published now, I believe, by Image, although don't hang me if I'm wrong. And I mean, these things do have their ways of getting out there.
Sure.
And it's not that it won't. It's just a different type of business model. So from that perspective, from a ownership perspective, from a monetary perspective, I mean, there's logic to it,
Sure. I mean, it's hard.
I can understand it from those perspectives, but I have a hard time being okay, especially with a writer that's openly gay, like James Tynion IV, willingly throwing in his lot with this company that's okay publishing hate speech on its platform.
Yeah, and I think maybe, everyone. And I was kind of, and I have some notes over here, and I want to word this correctly. And if I fluck it up, let me know if I fluck the statement up. That's why I put my Twitter handle down there. So please, if I mess this up, send the heat. But, everyone's moral compass is calibrated differently. So you take comic creator A, who left, and I'm not talking, this isn't, Kate Stegman, Tinny, whoever. This is comic creator A that left, one of the big two, goes to Substack, and maybe out of pure frustration of working for the big two, and just wants to put stuff out, doesn't want, like you said, doesn't want to mess with the editors,
right?
Not even really so much about the oodles of money that they're giving you. Doesn't hurt, but it's not so much that. Let's say we're just talking about creative freedom, and if someone is willing to kind of step aside and go, okay, well, I know I'm associated with these people, and I can overlook this. I can overlook this, or others
rationalizing,
right, and others may not. And that's kind of where I find myself at a crossroads, because it's easy for someone like me who has never had to deal with their human rights kind of being held by the courts and the government and stuff like that. I never had that problem. So for me to sit here and go, oh, well, yeah, people can just, step aside and people can just work with each other and do this. Well, I've never experienced people, hating me for who I'm, engaged to, sleeping with, or how I live my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's super hard for me to sit here and kind of go and just shrug it off as, that's fine. They can just ignore it.
Right.
So I get the rage. The rage is well warranted. So it's kind of like, like I said, go back to that moral compass. Everyone's kind of wired differently, and
some people, and I did one of my little researches. Chip Zdarsky has got something he's got publishing through them.
Yep.
And he's offsetting excuse me. He's offsetting it, some of this, by donating a percentage of the subscription money to the Rainbow Road LGBTQ organization, which works to help LGBTQIA+ people who face persecution globally find safety. So that's worthy. And I mean, there are options. And obviously Chip is one of the more liberal leaning writers in comics right now.
Sure.
You don't draw a comic called Sex Criminals for X number of years because you're a stodgy Reagan conservative.
Right.
So, but you've got other folks like Paul Cornell, who he flat out says, I won't support a platform that funds hate.
Right.
That's, like you said, that's that line in the sand.
Right.
And so everybody's handling it different. And these things have a way of sorting themselves out, I guess. Maybe the awareness of some of the shitty stuff that Substack is printing, permeating popular consciousness, will be the kick in the pants they need to fix this.
Right. Well, it was just
and that that doesn't excuse them from turning a blind eye to it, but it's better than nothing.
Sure, it is. And it's one of those, when I was reading through some tweet chains earlier, and I'm gonna say, I mean, it's not a huge thing, but Donnie Cates probably one of the best tweets, and it goes in that whole line of the sand thing, where he tweeted out, if only hot take tweets paid the bills, because someone kind of, tweeted at him about, him and Stegman going to Substack and stuff like that. And I get that. And that's one of those things. It's like, well, what do you do when, and obviously I'm not saying this is Donnie Cates' situation, but what happens if you're an indie creator, and this is going to help pay the bills. This is going to help get your name out there. This is going to help kind of, and I get both sides. And that's where, like I said, once again, that's where my dilemma is. It's like, for us to sit here and go, yeah, everyone's wired differently and everyone's this and that. It's, it's going to be a touchy subject until I think Substack comes out with a no shit policy, a no shit statement, and starts, because there's a couple people that were on that, a couple of the anti-trans folks from Substack that actually, they Twitter's banned them. I don't even think they're on Facebook anymore. So it's like other social media platforms are, taking stands and kind of.
Then they all just crawl over to Parler.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They all posse up over at Parler, and then, kind of, get newsletters at Substack. So it's kind of a vicious circle.
But not
Um,
not all creators are down with this. There's a
Sure.
cartoonist named Alex Schumacher who wrote, "I'm neither impressed nor excited by the Substack announcements. They're just another company exploiting and catering only to establishment names while neglecting up and coming independent creators. Cream your jeans if you'd like, but this does nothing for the industry as a whole. A minimal amount of research also reveals Substack's complicity in providing a platform for transphobic and alt-right bigots. It would appear some creators are perfectly content to turn a blind eye in exchange for a quick payday." That's a pretty hardcore statement, and it touches on a lot of things that we've already just talked about. And this dude clearly standing up for what he believes in, and I'm totally down with that. However, it does touch on something that we haven't discussed yet, and that's the privilege of some of these big names like Cates and Stegman, JT4 have in being able to negotiate these giant deals with Substack.
Yeah.
Whereas because it kind of seems to me like it flies in the face of what Substack was originally intended to be.
Right.
Where now, if you're a big enough name, you can get this huge platform and all of this money thrown at you. And then a tiny struggling up and comer is just completely hopelessly lost
Right.
in their shadow. And to me, it's very similar to the way that a lot of the big name creators like Scott Snyder are jumping on the Kickstarter
Right.
train, and the little guy for whom Kickstarter was intended in its origin are just lost in the mix.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it's like like a public pool analogy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's good until, eventually more people are going to jump in. The secret's not going to stay secret for long.
Yeah.
And I think, and honestly, be it Hickman, Stegman, Cates, whoever, I think a lot of this, and I would be surprised if they stay, past a few years or so ever, just to get some series out, get some issues out, just to have that creative freedom. Because honestly, I wholeheartedly believe that they're jumping ship from the big two just to get away from the monotony just of the editorial stuff and
a lot of the corporate bullshit.
Right. And just because, hey, we have this great idea. Well, it's not Spider-Man, Superman, Venom, Batman, and Iron Man, and it's kind of like, okay, well, let me go back.
That's nice, but do you have an idea for our 17th X-Men book?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because
Right.
Or, volume 8 of, Captain America. Like, I get it, and we love those characters, but, let's be honest, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. So, I mean, I'm, pot calling the kettle, but it's like, we've read these stories 30, 40 plus years now. For some of us, it's been more than 40 years, And so it's like a lot of times, you're going to read Spider-Man, you're going to go, okay, read it maybe once or twice. It's going to go in your box. You're never going to care about Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 8, number 117, where J. Jonah Jameson yelled at Spider-Man again. Doesn't matter if Tynion's writing it. Doesn't matter if there's a first appearance of Spider-Man's new shoe that he bought at the Van store. Doesn't matter, because we've read it over and over and over again. The only difference is we're getting new artists, we're getting new writers. Now, that's not to say it's bad, because it's great sometimes, depending on who they're getting and depending on the creative teams. But you can't help if you're a creator, and if someone's going, listen, I am going to give you a mega shit ton of money. You can do whatever you want. I just want to use your name.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 chances people are going to go, probably going to take that deal. Probably going to.
And I mean, to a couple of your points, and those are all really valid points, there's always going to be a level of safety inherent in the big two.
Sure, absolutely there is. Absolutely.
Yeah,
because they're going to.
You will never, ever, ever read a story where Spider-Man is revealed to be a trans character. It's things like that. There's always going to be a level of status quo.
Right.
And that by design is prohibitive towards creativity. And, you know, couple that with editorial edicts, couple that with corporate ownership and mandates and marketing saying we need to run an event comic 3-4 times a year and blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, there is at the very least a chance to write good, fun stories with characters that people love. And you know, you and I are salty old men, but there's some kid out there now that is 10 or 11 years old that's just picking up his first Spider-Man comic.
Right.
And
absolutely.
It's important that those kids, those next generation, always have that some level of entry point. You know, they
absolutely
have to learn 60 freaking years of Fantastic Four continuity to pick up the new issue of Fantastic Four and enjoy it as long as they get the gist of the characters.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's that. And I mean, look, Marvel or DC wanted to pay me to write those stories. I'm there. You know, you would be too.
Sure, absolutely. In a heartbeat.
And there's a level of safety in it. Now there's a level of scrutiny from the fans because, God, you know, heaven forbid you're the guy that makes Star Wars Episode 8 and everybody hates you, or you know, whatever. To use an extreme example.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, there's still safety in writing Wolverine.
Sure, absolutely.
Wolverine is not a character that's going to go anywhere. His comics are always going to sell. And, you know, you can say that for Batman and Superman and Wonder, you know, whoever. So I can see how after a while, and Tynion's been a big name at DC since 2014.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, he came out of Scott Snyder's writing school. I can see how after X number of years, maybe he's feeling a little, want to sow his wild oats a little bit, you know? It's fine. Yeah. And maybe he'll get a lot of money and he'll retain ownership off of this, and good for him. And maybe he'll be able to fly his creative wings completely unencumbered. And good for him, and sell IPs to the studios and make movies out of his creations and have total control and be a raging lunatic. But at the end of the day, he's also going to have to look at himself in the mirror and say, I threw in with a company that is okay fomenting hate speech. And that's a personal choice.
Yeah. And that's where I kind of just like, I get that Substack. You know, it has, you know, trans and, you know, trans members on their roster and stuff. And I get that. And that's, you know, like you talked about, you know, are folks okay in a sense sharing space? And then it's one of those things where it's like, how do you take that? You know, what do you do with that? You know, because it's like, I mean, if I know, and I work for, I'm not gonna say where I work, but I work for a pretty, you know, liberal university. And I would be shocked that if someone in my office had said, you know, anti-trans, anti-gay, you know what I'm saying, some type of racist statement. Like I know that I would probably really seriously consider kind of like, I don't know if I can work with this person anymore. Like this is
definitely
heavy shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to put up with stuff like that, you know, in the military and stuff. And disclaimer, not everyone was like that. So let's not get that discussion going. But I had, you know, heard many terms and words and what have you. But it's kind of like, me myself, I know that I would probably have to seriously consider, like, I honestly, I probably couldn't do it, you know, but then again, it's like that old adage, you know, it's like everyone jokes, you know, everyone has a price. Well, if it's true, then what's the price? You know what I'm saying? How much, what, is the contract worth it? And if it is, then by all rights, man, enjoy it. But it goes back to what we said earlier, man. Everyone's wired, everyone's moral compass is wired a little different, and you don't know everyone's situation. So it's kind of, we could probably talk about this for another hour
Sure.
and a half and stuff, but it's like this whole thing is so weird, but it's like
it's weird and
it's
new, and I mean, you and I are seasoned enough that we remember the arguments when digital comics were first starting to be a thing, 07, 08, and everyone was like, yeah, the sky is falling, it's the death of print, screw everybody. Mark Waid was a supporter of it, and everyone was like, pariah.
Yeah.
And guess what? It wasn't the end of the world. Yeah. It opened up new avenues for readers that wouldn't ordinarily pick up a comic or go in a comic store. And taking the ick factor out of the Substack thing aside, the concept of what they're doing, the business model, that in and of itself has the potential to really enhance and adapt and really help creators to get the payment they deserve. Because one of the other things that surprisingly has come out in the discourse in the last couple weeks is Marvel and DC not so great about paying their people super good wages. This sort of thing could force Marvel and DC to start paying their damn creators better.
As they should.
Yeah, I mean, they're owned by the biggest companies in the freaking world. Pay your damn creatives. But that is, that's just one aspect of it. And maybe another Substack with actual community standards will pop up in the next year or two and supplant Substack as the place of choice for these creators to go without having to worry about trampling across their moral line in the sand.
Sure.
And have the creative freedom that they deserve in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love nothing more, and to be honest, as a fan of Zdarsky and Hickman and, Cates and Stegman and stuff like that, Michael Moore, and I found out there's some other folks that I kind of keep tabs on that run through Substack. I found myself kind of looking into myself, was like, well, can I support these books while they're, or, be it digital, be it print, can I support these books? It's like, I don't know, I just don't know if I could support these, one of those things.
Totally. I mean, I guess when the print versions inevitably come out, supporting Image or Boom or whomever, I'll definitely check that out. But I have zero intention of subscribing to any of these on Substack.
Yeah, no, and it kind of pains me, but it's at some point in time, I think you got to take some type of stand, be it with the wallet, be it at the picket line. You got to have, your morals in line. You got to have that moral compass calibrated according to how you're going to live and the choices you're going to make. And it's one of those things. I mean, I hate to do it because these are some of my favorite people. But I just don't know if these people are still, if the icky people are still on, Substack. Because it's bad enough that my money goes to a lot of other big conglomerate corporations that I'm not too great with.
Yeah, you're actually owned by Big Baseball. I already know.
Yeah, I'm really bad about something, but I don't eat Chick-fil-A and I don't shop at Hobby Lobby, so I got that going for me. But it's one of those things. I just I would love for this to turn around and like I said earlier, see Substack take that hard stance. And it's one thing to have, different opinions, varying opinions. But it's another thing to have weaponized opinions, and that's what Substack is harboring, is weaponized opinions, and that's shitty.
Yep, absolutely. So, Tynion, I mean, good on you for this deal in and of itself, but man, I hope at the end of the day, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, bro's got to live with himself. So
yeah.
Well, that got heavy. Goodness, I gotta say, it got really heavy in here for a minute. Mike.
Yeah.
I just got to know. We haven't done this in a long, long time. What have you been reading, and what are you looking forward to?
What have I been reading? I have been jonesing on Red Room by Ed Piskor.
Okay.
That was really good. It wasn't even on my radar until Cody had emailed me and said, "Hey, got this book. It's by Ed Piskor. It's really, really gory. And I think Cody said something like, it's kind of gross. So, but you're the first person that came to mind when I saw him. Like, thanks. But it's really good. If you're a horror fan, especially into like body horror, if you like stuff like
right,
yeah, you'll definitely get into it. But the prize is pretty much like Red Room is kind of dealing with it's kind of like Red Room's on the internet. It's almost like the old Nicolas Cage 8mm movie. Well, right. And so I will say Red Room is not for everybody. So and I would definitely, ask about it, because there is some stuff in there that's pretty, I mean, it's not like it's gross, but it's not like too far. He definitely doesn't go over lines, but definitely check out Red Room.
Okay.
Really, really good.
Publish that, Mike.
Yeah. What I'm looking forward to, obviously, Spawn coming up.
Who published Red Room?
It's Fantagraphic Books.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, Fantagraphic Books.
Okay. Piskor's been periodically releasing Hip Hop Family Tree with them. And
yes.
They're, one of those reputable hoity-toity kind of comics publishing companies.
Yeah.
Okay. That in and of itself gives it some cash.
Yeah. Quality book, quality variant covers. Peach Momoko's in there, of course, because she has to draw every single book that gets.
Yeah, published. She's having a moment.
Good Lord, take a break. But yeah, what I'm looking forward to, King Spawn, #1 is coming out, and then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 120 is
the Last Ronin #4 ever going to ship? 4 and 5?
I think in 2027 we should get it. And by chance, Kevin Eastman, Tom Waltz, Ben Bishop, if you guys are listening, huge fans. I'll wait, another 8 years for the Last Ronin to come out. But Last Ronin is a marvelous book as well. My God, it's so good. Huge. But so what have you been reading? What are you
well, I was on vacation recently, and I had chances to read so many cool things. Like, I literally just went and deliberately bought a bunch of travel reading material.
Nice.
So we got These Savage Shores by Ram P and Samit Kumar from Vault. That is a fantastic book if you haven't read it. I do not think that it is out of line to compare Ram V to Alan Moore in terms of writing style.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you like the Alan Moore style of writing, you should be reading anything by Ram V. And These Savage Shores is really, really cool. I went and I checked out the first volume of Philadelphia.
Love it.
Yeah, this is a cool book. It took me a minute to get into it. Like Rodney Barnes, the writer, I believe this is his opening, first attempt at writing comics. And the first issue it showed a little bit,
Yeah,
it happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, once it got into the second and third issue and the story really starts going, this is a good comic.
Yeah, really good.
With some ridiculously awesome art by Jason Sean Alexander. Speaking of Spawn.
Yeah. I think that art really speaks to the writing of the book as well. Mashes up really good.
Oh man, you'll never look at John Adams the same way again after you read The Founding Father. I mean,
yes. History class forever ruined.
Yep. And then I picked up, based on our colleague and friend of the show, Lillian Hawkwinder's recommendation, the Loki Agent of Asgard complete collection by Al Ewing.
Is that pretty good?
It's great.
Okay.
Holy crap. I mean, I just want to pick up anything and everything that Al Ewing has ever written at this point.
You probably should pick anything and everything. You should.
This book had never even been on my radar.
Nope.
Because I think it came out like right around the time Ewing first started working at Marvel regularly, and I just forgot about it.
Yeah.
But it's really cool, really, really good. If you liked the show Loki, you will definitely like this. So yeah, the persona of the Loki that we know and love on the show really comes from this comic.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, definitely righteous stuff. What am I looking forward to? I have a stack of comics from this week that I'm still getting into, but the one that I'm looking forward to reading the most is Superman and the Authority #2. We got Grant Morrison and Michael Janine, Superman, and reimagining the Authority for 2021.
Ooh.
And it's really unique, and you should always pay attention whenever Grant Morrison is writing Superman. And this is the last thing Morrison is going to write for DC for a long time. It was actually the last thing was technically the final issue of their recent Green Lantern run, but this series was completed in 2018 and then shelved for a little while due to COVID.
Yeah.
So, technically not the last thing he wrote, but whatever. It's the last thing we'll see from DC for a while.
Sure.
It is an awesome book. It is not your dad's Authority. It is a much more nuanced take than what Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch and Mark Miller and Frank Quietly did with the Authority 20-ish years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. It's the story of an older Superman, not like old, but a little over the hill, not much. Realizing that, hey, I'm not going to be alive forever. If I'm really going to succeed in my mission of truth and justice, I need to set some things in motion to truly change systems in the world to make it a better place without being a dictator. And it's really interesting the choices that Morrison is making with the characters that Superman's choosing to do this. And it's interesting too because this is an all new version of the Authority except for Apollo and Midnighter, but the characters that Superman's bringing in are sort of roughly analogous to other types of characters from the original one on the Authority, which is just one of my favorite things ever.
The Authority. You can't go wrong with the Authority.
Chef's kiss, dude.
So good. Yeah.
So, really special comic, Superman and the Authority. Of course, Morrison will be sorely missed at DC while they're off doing other things. And I'm sure it's inevitable that they'll be back at some point because DC is just Morrison's home. And they never seem to stay gone for long. So
taking a break, just going to get a sandwich at Subway and it'll be back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's our show for the week. We'll be back next week. What are we doing? I have no idea. Who are we talking to? Could be anybody. But we're back. It's the Mike and Matt show. Hi. And we thank you all so much for listening.
Yes.
One last shout out to Nicholas Osborne, the the new marketing guru for Valiant Comics, Nick, buddy. We love you, and we know you're going to crush this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So until then, guys, read something, support your local comic store, and above all, be kind to one another. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, we remain the Comic Watchers Show.